Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So my last one cut out. Hopefully this one lasts a little bit longer. I didn't get a can't get it out. I didn't get the chance to talk to the audience in the last one, so I kind of wanted to do one where I could at least have a back and forth with the audience. So let's make this one blistering quick, just in case something ever goes down. Talk to the audience first before it goes out. Rigged. I'm using the sign of rigged because however bad you thought the DNC rigged the process, however bad you thought Hillary Clinton had her hooks and fingers into the apparatus itself, it gets worse. It goes further than what we actually thought it was. It's like, as you dig this particular pit, however it smells, oh, there's more bad smells to go. Let's take a look at this article. This is HuffPost of all things. What Donna Brazile left out of the Democratic National Committee story. The party's choice of consultants shows just how few allies Bernie Sanders had in the inner circle. What they're talking about. The DNC was massively in debt, as you know. Part of being massively in debt, this kind of, we need Hillary Clinton to give us money from her campaign in order to keep us alive. This is an existential issue at this point. We don't have money just for basic operations. Hillary Clinton titrates the money to the states, allowing people to give her cash, even through the state apparatus itself. Her breaking the law, bringing all of that money back to herself, essentially skirting campaign finance laws, laundering money through the states. Now, that sounds bad in and of itself. It's like, oh man, that sounds bad. I mean, you're beholden to Hillary Clinton. How could that possibly get worse? What if, even though you were cash strapped, some of the consultants that you were using was beholden to you because those people either would potentially get a job in your administration? God damn it. Let's see, which one is this? Yes, this is up. Yeah, because those people will either get a job that will be beholden to you, or for the most part, those people are just in your camp in the first place. This is what he's talking about when he said very few allies. The money that the campaign, that the DNC itself was spending on consultants, they were using consultants that were favorable to Hillary Clinton. That for the most part were establishment consultants. One of which was, hey, this person may even get a job as communications director if Hillary Clinton wins. Do you think she would be motivated to help Bernie Sanders in any way? Do you think Bernie Sanders is going to give her a job at the end of this campaign? Let's read the article. It's pretty amazing. Let me see, how long is this? Yeah, this is rather long in detail, so I'm not going to read all of it. I will read the juicy bits in the beginning, though. Here we go. Although Brazile has since tried to walk back some of her harshest criticism, her story actually missed one telling point. August 2015 wasn't the month when the DNC started letting Clinton and her allies drive the bus. That came months earlier when Representative Deborah Wasserman Schultz, then the DNC chair, asked a handful of Clinton loyalists and establishment Democrats to help run the party's election strategy. The DNC relied on multiple consulting firms during the election, but the two most prominent and highest paid were Precision Strategies and SKDK Knickerbocker. On January 2015, about 3 months before Clinton officially announced her candidacy. Understand what he's saying? Hillary Clinton hadn't even announced her candidacy. Deborah Wasserman Schultz had already went out and saying, hey, we need some loyalists to help us out. We need people to assist us in helping up setting the election strategy. Well, this wasn't an issue because, yes, Deborah Wasserman Schultz was in the tank for Hillary Clinton. And yes, the people who she was going to choose was also going to be in the tank for Hillary Clinton. It would make sense for Deborah Wasserman Schultz to hire people or get people to help her that wasn't going to back the candidate that she herself was going to back. Integrity is expensive. And the last thing those people were going to do is show this thing of integrity of, no, we need to be impartial and fair to Bernie Sanders. That wasn't going to happen. That didn't happen. That was months before Hillary Clinton even came out and said, I am going to run for office. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. Let's keep going, because it gets worse. The DNC relied on multiple consulting firms. Oh, I read that part. Let me see. On May 19th, 2015, SKDK, which had worked with the party in various roles for years, received its first payment of the cycle. Oh, payday. The DNC ultimately gave Precision and SKDK close to $1 million over the course of the presidential race. This cash-strapped party had all of this money to give these consulting agencies. Nearly $400,000 of that came from the primary. During the primary, when Clinton was battling it out with Sanders, the DNC paid Precision $2,300 for the political consulting between February 2016 and the end of the primary. It paid SKDK $150,000 for the media consulting between May 2015 and the end of the primary. In October 2015, former top Clinton aide Mark Penn bought SKDK. You don't say. You don't say. Precision co-founder Jennifer O'Malley Dillon, a Barack Obama campaign veteran and former executive director of the DNC, was considered a likely Clinton campaign hire even before she was brought on helping with the party's 2016 messaging. The New York Times reported in August 2015 that O'Malley Dillon was unofficially advising the Clinton campaign. The process behind the DNC hiring shows just how deep the Clinton campaign was coordinating with the party and the White House. I understand what's being said here. The people who they were using, the allies that they were coming up with, are for the most part just Clinton loyalists. These were people who were already in the tank for a particular side. That side not being Bernie Sanders. That side not being Bernie Sanders. The catch is, the DNC is doing this, by the way. If the DNC is doing this, and the DNC is supposed to be impartial, then the DNC is not being impartial. The DNC is favoring one of the candidates. Now, yes, we know that the DNC was favoring one of the candidates, but the money that these guys are spending are for consulting firms and agencies that are specific or have a specific dog in the hunt. That dog being Hillary Clinton. It's amazing. It's amazing. Look, I would say this goes back further than that. I would say this goes back to the Obama election in 2008. In the primaries, Obama battled against Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton comes out and says, I'm giving my delegate votes to Obama, and I full-throatedly support this man. I support Obama. And she did. She did. She went out. She was a good soldier. She went out. There wasn't an inch of daylight between the things that both of them would have did in that office. So, yeah, I don't see why she wouldn't support him. Only other reason she wouldn't support him is because she herself wanted to be in that office. That being said, it makes perfect sense to me that Obama would say, I would put you in a position that would allow you as a launch pad for the presidency in 2016, providing that I win it in 2012. That makes all the sense in the world to me. I am giving you a favor. This politics is transactional. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, for the most part, if nothing else, has shown that politics is transactional. I will give you my supporters. What are you going to give me for it? You are going to protect my legacy. I'm going to put you as Secretary of State, and I'm going to give you a launch pad. So in 2016, you'll be able to walk to the White House. And up to that point, there's a reason for Hillary Clinton saying, I supported Obama, and this attitude that it was my turn, this expectation that all of these people were supposed to fall in line for. I honestly believe, that she took that to mean that this is my turn. I assisted Obama back in 2008. All of you are supposed to assist me right now. I was a good soldier. I made a deal saying that this is going to be my launch pad. How dare these repugnant, socialists challenge me for what's supposed to be this kind of this handing off process between one Democratic president to the next Democratic president. Fuck democracy. Democracy is a pain in the ass. Democracy is a pain in the ass. Yeah, I'm going to put this article at the bottom. You can go through it. It's rather long, but it is somewhat detailed. Yeah, however bad you thought it was rigged, oh, it always gets worse. It always gets worse. Let's see. Yeah. Jamal, can you invite Debbie on your show for a special talk about the 2016 primary election fraud that occurred across the country? I would love to have Debbie on my show. Debbie has like 40-something thousand subscribers. I've invited her on my show once, and of course it was always an open invitation. Anytime you wanted to come back for any particular reason, have at it. This platform is yours to to interact with. I had to be honest, I am mentally uncomfortable with asking Debbie to come back on the show. There was all sorts of fuck-ups and everything else with the technology when she was on the show. I personally think it went well. I thought when the conversation was going well, the conversation was going well. I'd love to have Debbie on my show for anything. I think the conversation about Sanders would be interesting, to say the least. I think that would be interesting. Her and I disagree on that one. That would be interesting, to say the least. I like Debbie's videos. I like Debbie. Even when I disagree with her, I think she's coming from a good place. And when I understand where she's coming from, whether I disagree with her or agree with her, I think she's being earnest. Which matters, man. That's a big fucking deal. Like, look, I don't like biased journalism or biased news. I hate bias. I hate bias. And what I mean by bias, not bias towards, I have a humanistic position, so yes, I want to err towards these things of humanistic endeavors. But this thing of, I have this particular position, but this position changes depending upon whether or not the person I am supporting is in favor of this particular position. So you would have these lefty Democrats arguing that murdering and drone strikes, where most of the people who are getting killed are civilians, is somehow a just policy of the Obama era. It's fucking amazing. Yeah, fucking amazing. No, I like Debbie. Like I say, even when I think she's in the weeds, I still like her. Or at the very least, give her the benefit of the doubt. Let me say it that way. I know she's coming from a place of earnestness. The Sanders thing, I disagree with her on. I think there are a lot of scorned people with the Sanders thing. I think it reached down and hit something deep. And I understand why. Like, it's ripping. It's like a dream deferred, or it's ripping something out of somebody. This thing of, I will give this one last chance. And no, this particular person isn't perfect. No, it's not giving me everything I want, but I can't let the political process go. I would give it one more go. And to have that, what do you want to call it? That optimism, that hope of something get ripped out of your chest. And you take this aspect of, it wasn't just ripped out of my chest because this is the series of events. It was ripped out of my chest because this guy didn't stand for X. And not just didn't stand for X. The problem is the system itself, and any particular participation in the system is causing an issue. I understand a line of logic. Totally understand it. I've said before that I am not as ideologically pure on this as Debbie is. I am in no way more as ideologically pure. So we can have the argument about Sanders. I don't think he's controlled opposition. I have a hard time believing that part. It's the argument, meaning it's the conversation. Like, it's one thing if you had a candidate who's attacking Clinton in a particular way, and this thing of bringing people into the party and everything. It's the conversation that you're having, though. His conversation was too close to the rails. I guess that's what I'm saying. The argument about class is way too close to the rails. I just can't see that is being controlled opposition. It's too much. It's getting too close to waking people up to the realities that's facing them. I mean, the last thing I would imagine, if you're some plutocrat somewhere, even if you're a democratic plutocrat, meaning, I don't want to rape the public, but so much because I'm concerned that the public will flip out and take what we have. Even if you're one of those guys, I would imagine the last thing you want is a conversation to be put on this thing of wealth and property, and is it right for people to have so much when other people have so little? This thing of this humanistic, just moral argument of, what matters more, people or profits? What matters more? Is it right for somebody to have $40 billion and somebody else to be sleeping on the street? Now, you would have some people out there saying, yes, that's perfectly okay. Those people are mentally ill to some degree. And I say they're mentally ill if they think their profits is in any way comparative to the profit or the cost or the value of a human being. Yeah, I think those people are a little mentally insane. But they've been mentally insane because of the system to which we find ourselves. So fair enough. I think the majority of the people will buy that argument of, yeah, human beings matter more, and our society should be fairer. Yeah, I think people will buy that argument. If that argument is made, I want that argument made to the masses. Sanders is not perfect, but man, I want that argument made to the masses. So yeah, I would totally have that conversation with Debbie. But I think you overestimate the range and the width of this channel in regards to pulling that off. That's more of a Debbie question. That's not me. Robert Pouquet Ray. Debbie just released an interview with Brazile. Couldn't watch it because I had ate 30 minutes ago. Couldn't watch it because I ate 30 minutes ago. That's awesome. To Mostly Young, it went deeper. But of course, Jinx Uger. That's funny. Nikki King, probably during the time she was running around the country saying, maybe I'll run. I'm thinking about it. Well, that was a legal thing. She couldn't say, I'm running, because there are certain legal consequences associated with her saying she's running. But it didn't matter when she said she was running. It was already in the bag. Deborah Wasserman Schultz certainly was in the bag for Hillary Clinton. That's who she wanted. That's who they looked at as saying, yes, this is going to be the person who exceeds me. Obama put Deborah Wasserman Schultz in that office, I would argue, for that very specific point. When Hillary Clinton runs, I want you to be there to make sure she exceeds to this office. Give her a push-off. And I could be wrong on that, but there's a relationship between the two that I would argue that kind of gives a predisposition to supporting Hillary Clinton this way. Deborah Wasserman Schultz had already had control of the DNC. She was already buying the consultants. It was already in the bag. Like, the fix was already in before Hillary Clinton even announced she was running for office. That's the point I'm trying to get at. It's fucking amazing. I am hiring consultants. Those consultants are going to have a very particular point of view of the world in Democratic politics. Whether Clinton has announced she's announcing or not, certainly Deborah Wasserman Schultz knows that Hillary Clinton is running for office. And the people I would imagine she's going to choose are going to be Clintonites. And lo and behold, the people she did choose just so happen to be Clintonites. So, at least most of them anyway. At least most. NMC398. Should Bernie decide to run again, it shouldn't be with the Democrats. How the hell can you run for a party that has a reputation for backstabbing? NMC398, I disagree. I think he should run for the Democrats. I want that party destroyed. And what I mean is, the instance of that party, it's like, the king is dead, long live the king. I want that party destroyed. You can remake it as something else, but at the very least, the person, the president, head of the DNC for the most part, chooses who's going to be the head of the DNC. And you're talking about purges. I just don't want Sanders to be a pussy about it. That's all. If he's going to, look, if he runs, he needs to win, period. That's all that matters, win. Once you win, you can change the party into your image. You can make that party something fundamentally different. And I suspect the reason he's running in this is because that's what he wants to do. Third way Democrats were able to do it for the New Deal Democrats. It can happen again. I would say the test of legitimacy by Democrats have failed. They failed miserably. They need to be redone. Nothing takes place in this world without that party being redone. If it has any... I have two feelings on this. Either it needs to be destroyed or it needs to change. One or the other. Meaning you need something else. Something else to threaten and beat over the head or take the place of what is now considered the Democratic Party. That's providing the party itself doesn't have the capacity to change. My history tells me that everyone who's in a particular era thinks that that era goes on forever. I would imagine the slave never considered or never really could see a situation in which he was free. The serf probably, again, never could see a situation where he was free. Those things change. Those things do change. That edifice of government is still there. The question becomes who can take it. Yeah, I think Sanders has a chance of winning. Can he win the primary? Yeah, I think he can win the primary, providing Democrats don't cheat. Can he win the election? Yes, he will beat the stuffing out of Donald Trump. Does that mean that he fundamentally changes what it means to be a Democrat in the same way that Jeremy Corbyn fundamentally changes what it means to be in Labour in Britain? Yes. That answer is yes. So yeah, I think he should run as a Democrat. I want him to destroy the party, at least the party as it stands. 24-hour lib. 24-hour lib, I love that. Yes, because most of them won't back him anyway. Gardome, the level of change needed would be such that it would remain the same party in name only. Yes, Gardome, that's my point. Yes, I want it hollowed out. In the way that Tom Perez was having these purges, I want purges. I want purges. I want full-on, in the media spotlight purges with Democrats holding their shit in a box and walking out the office. That's what I want. That's what I want. This is not about being fair in regards to the other Democrats. This is not about being fair. And none of this stuff has nothing to do with fairness. This is politics. It has to do with winning. In the same way that they've treated lefties. They've set the rules. They've set the rules. Use the rules in the way that they've set those rules. Anyone in power, all people in power, do the exact same thing. So yeah, if Sanders wins, I would hope Sanders doesn't all of a sudden become this flaming lefty and saying, oh, we need this peace movement. This is not about a peace movement. This is about fundamentally changing and hollowing that party out in regards to what it currently is. Yeah, you change it. You change it. You fundamentally change it. You break it. Tom Perez, a values guy. Yeah, Tom Perez needs to go too. And he will go, depending if they lose. Dax Jacobson, the DNC is only a skin suit now. It's why Bernie is not a Democrat 99% of the time. Agreed. Dax, agreed. Agreed. It's like an Uber. Diesel D's, Jamal loves the duopoly. It's not that I love the duopoly. It's just I know that it can change, if that makes sense. I've made this pitch for a third party. I think you need a third party. You fundamentally need a third party. You need a third party for two reasons. If the Democratic Party collapses, which I am personally okay with, you need something to pick up the slack as a vehicle for the left. That's the first part. Whether the Democratic Party collapses or not, you need a club, a viable, legitimate club to hit them with, to be a threat in the same way that socialists were a threat back in the 20s. You need that club. And right now, you don't have that club. Those things have been destroyed. You need something. You need something. You can't trust the party the way this party is. And again, I'm not ideologically pure on this. Either it needs to be hollowed out and changed, or you need a third party. You need one or the other, or both. I would argue both. I would argue both. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Let's see, Vermont bread. Hello, Vermont bread. To fuck over Americans. Yeah, they've been fucking over Americans. And Stizer. Yes, I want to get together, dude. Whenever your podcast is. August Cybernard. Again, I ask, if the DNC election were to happen today, again, do you think they would let Bernie votes stand? No. You have no evidence that the DNC would do something different than they did last time. I'm not saying they would. Put it this way. The Unity Convention is good on two fronts. If they're going to do open primaries, that's the first point. And if it's going to be this thing of, what's the other thing? Open primaries and getting rid of superdelegates. Personally, I don't think they're going to do that. I will be shocked as shit if the Unity reform gets rid of either of those two things. That would kind of get across this thing that this point that I've been making. Unless you're willing to say no, you're not going to get anything changed. That's my argument. That's been my consistent argument. If the Unity Commission comes back and says, yeah, we're not doing that. I know you wanted those things. We're not doing those things. And I've made the argument that those two things are major, major points along the way. Like if Sanders is right, and he's going with this idea of dementor, meaning he wants to drag people into the Democratic Party. He wants to sheepdog people into the party. If he's right, then those two things will fall, meaning the superdelegates will be gotten rid of and the open primaries will be allowed. If Sanders is wrong, then the Unity Reform Commission is a dog and pony show, as I thought it was a dog and pony show. And ultimately, they're going to say, if you guys are willing to vote for us regardless, why do we have to change squat? Why do we have to change anything? I want to see what the Unity Commission says. I don't think the DNC is going to change. I personally think that this is a dog and pony show that's ultimately there to be something of this idea of unity while the public is watching and kind of fitter away into something else afterwards. I also don't think they're changing just because they never admitted to the cheating in the first place. How can you trust something that doesn't even admit to the point that they cheated last time? So I get your point, Augur. And I, to some degree, even agree with that point. The question becomes, what happens between now and 2020? Now, you may say nothing happens between now and 2020. I'm not fully sure if that's true. I consistently ask this follow-up question. What does the dim-enter crowd do when all of these things get slapped down? When all of the things that they wanted a petition party for, if it doesn't work, what do? Are they willing to finally say no? And are they willing to finally start something else? That's my question. That's been my persistent question. Now, if Sanders runs again, yes, I'm voting for Sanders. If he runs in the primaries, he runs in the election, yes, I'm voting for Sanders. But it's a second question, if you're asking me, whether or not Sanders will be able to exceed the primaries in a sense of, will they allow a fair contest? I guess that's the question that's being put for me. I suspect they're going to do whatever they need to do in gamesmanship and everything else to try to keep him from winning. That's what I think. I think you're right. I think you're right. I'm curious to see what takes place between now and then. I would say they are setting up to rig the process already by purging all these other members. Otherwise, you know, clearly they have a bias in what they're trying to do, trying to hold themselves up into the kingdom. This, again, goes back to my original point of saying no. Just saying no. It's like you get beat, slapped, and everything else, and at the end of the day, you're always willing to go back to the Democratic Party. Any level of integrity in oneself, not even integrity, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It's not integrity. But any level of sense of pride in oneself, at some point, looked like you would just say, no, I'm done. They don't. They don't. They keep at it. The Dementors. The Dementors. Good evening, all. I'm already in bed, but I'm going to listen. Wanted to say hello to this fine chat and delighted host. Aw, how's it going, Lisa? How's it going, Lisa? D. Martin, are we still pretending that Bernie has an unspoken grand strategy? August Abinard, liberals should have already been throwing the Democratic Party card in mass and fires. Agreed. Today, Facebook videos of each burning. Agreed. Agreed, 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 agreed. I am not, I know it sounds like I'm walking a tightrope on this. It's not that I'm walking a tightrope. I am being very specific in this. If Sanders runs, yes, I'm voting for Sanders, primary or election itself. Otherwise, I don't, my point has always been to support the person who you think is representing your interests. I don't care what their label is. Support the person you believe is representing your interests. And if you believe they're not, that answer becomes no. That answer becomes no. I don't understand the Dementors. I don't get it. I gotta be honest. I honestly don't get it. Like, I guess in my head, I always think of it as a beaten spouse. Like the lefties are the abused spouses of the political circle. It's like, it's fucking amazing. They always wring their hands. Lefties wring their hands all the time about how bad the Democratic Party is, what the Democratic Party does. They don't want to help us. Just as Democrats whining that they're not giving them their rolls, voter rolls or something. They don't like you, dude. They just want your votes. They ultimately believe you have nowhere else to go. And because they believe that you have nowhere else to go, and you're wholly dependent upon them for your political existence, they're willing to do whatever they want to do. They would assume that you would come along. Meaning, from the political, if this was played out in some kind of relationship, this will be you getting slapped in the face day after day after day, and you accepting it, saying, I think he has a good soul, and I'm going to try to repair his soul. If I love him enough, we can repair his soul. He slaps you, all that stuff. Doesn't wash his hands when he's cooking food, all that stuff. He's nasty, he's gross. But he knows you're going to stay. So ultimately, he has no reason at all to change. He knows you're going to stay. And that's essentially what takes place. Progressives are the abused spouses of the political scene. And continuously wringing their hands, never getting to the point of finally saying, I am done. I am done. And going so far as to, have this Dementer campaign, these apologists. It's fucking amazing. It's fucking amazing. At which point do you say, I'm done? It's like Mike Tyson bites the ear off Evander Holyfield, spits it out the ring. He's not forbidden from boxing ever again. It's like, what does a person have to do to be kicked out of boxing? It just seems like one thing after the next. Being cheated is not enough. You still had a bunch of people who decided to vote for Hillary Clinton after knowing that Hillary Clinton cheated their candidate. That wasn't enough. Purging progressives wasn't enough. Lying about it for a year wasn't enough. I don't know what's the breaking point. And I keep hoping to myself, I'm praying to myself, that when the Democratic Party comes out and says, yeah, we're not touching the primaries, we're not touching the super delegates, and you people can go fuck yourselves, because as Virginia showed, if you get people scared enough, they'll vote for us anyway. Are these people still going to be dementor when all of the things that they've been depending upon? And if there's any strategy at all, by the way, one of the planks in that strategy has to be these two items. If that strategy fails, if this plank is not, if this bit of ground is not taken, meaning getting rid of superdelegates, can the Dem-Enter crowd honestly still say that they're getting something accomplished? For that matter, it's just as Democrats. Are they going to vote for Joe Manchin if Paula Swearengin loses? Are they going to actively say vote for Joe Manchin if what's her name loses, Paula Swearengin loses? I'm curious about this. Like, I'm just curious about how aggressive the Dementor crowd is. Like, is it so sad where it doesn't necessarily matter what takes place, they'll still support whatever the Democrat puts up? Or is there a limit to being degraded in this way? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Political, just as Democrats will fall in line. I'm not surprised. I think they will too. D. Martin, which corporate warmongering Democrat is going to piggyback into the White House with Bernie's help? You're a mean one, D. Martin. You're a mean and nasty guy. I'm teasing, D. Martin. I don't look. If you're asking me, if Sanders loses the primaries, will Sanders turn around and support that candidate? Say Kamala Harris exceeds the primaries. They cheat Sanders, either using superdelegate votes or something else. But it's cheating. It's cheating. It's known cheating. Would Sanders turn around and support Kamala Harris, knowing that they cheated him again? Would he do it? Oh man, I don't even want to think about that. I don't even want to think about that. That's a horrible scenario. I don't even want to think about it. I do not want to even think about it. Perez is an arse-licking rat. Perez is ridiculous. He's always screaming about his values and nobody knows what the hell those values are. Daxus Jacobson. A lot of women voted for the Clintons so they could open doors for women in a way they opened doors for black people who lost a decade's worth of wealth during Obama. Electing a sellout does not open doors. Dax, yes, you're right. Open a sellout does not open doors. This is the problem with identity politics. You're suckered into this thing of, oh, he's black. He's black. Yes. We've made it. We've made it to the White House. He's fucking black. You lost massive amounts of wealth during the Obama era. Yes, he was black, but you're assuming that he looks at race in the same way that you're looking at race. You're assuming that just because he's black, that he's something, like that race signifies something that race doesn't signify squat. The issue in this is class. And as long as Democrats push this identity thing, they can coalesce groups and everything else around these issues of identity, LGBTQ, black, gay, lesbian, Mexican, Hispanic, all these things, all these identity issues. And it's not that the identity issues aren't important. Don't misunderstand me. It's not this or that. I'm making a point that it's both. You can't have a conversation about identity without having a conversation about class. You can't honestly have a conversation about identity without having a conversation about class. Meaning, the reason why Martin Luther King was a socialist, and the reason why he was so bent on this kind of jobs thing and this wealth issue, was because I think he understood that there is no such thing as freedom in a capitalistic system without ends. I mean, your range of decision space, your access to goods and services, hell, even where you live and stay, the air that you breathe, is purely dependent upon how much cash you can muster, how much cash you have in your pocket, how much capital can I get my hands on. If you don't have cash, you don't have access. There is no way you can say there is freedom in a capitalistic system with a person who's working 50 hours a week, barely or just making minimum wage. Half of the country, I think it's more than half, but it's at least half of the country, is making a poverty wage. That's an amazing thing. Somebody's making under $30,000 a year. How do you live off that? And can you honestly say that that's freedom at that point if all of your time and your days are spent doing something to make profit for somebody else, or you live off a poverty wage? It's like you're working your way to poverty. It's like, fuck, man. Yeah. Just because, the identity itself doesn't necessarily get across anything other than it's a person of a particular identity. The issue is class. For the 99%, the major issue is class. You protect and you fight like hell on issues of race and identity. Yes. Flat fact true. Completely true. No hedge. Absolutely true. There should be this kind of hegemonic view of identity in the sense of being sexist is bad, being racist is bad, where the society looks at this stuff and puts pressure on individuals who doesn't conform to this. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Slider of GJ has this really good point of, I don't necessarily want to keep arguing if rape is a good thing. It's not. Having a hegemonic view that rape is bad is a good place to be. That's not necessarily a bad perspective for society to take. So yeah, you fight like hell to make sure issues of identity are sacrosanct. But the issue is class. The issue is class. And this idea of the Democrats weaponizing identity in this way purely to obfuscate from issues of class is sad and pathetic. And ultimately, you get people like Obama or you get people like Clinton who tries to leverage their race or leverage their gender in order to get in that office. It's not real, man. It's not real. It's the illusion that they give you. It's the thing that they use. These guys use whatever they can use in order to get into that office. In the same way that Obama looked at being black. Yes, there's a headwind with being an African-American president, particularly being the first one. Which is why, for the most part, left issues of race to the side. It wasn't something that he would hit dead on, at least not constantly. Particularly when issues of race would come up, like a cop shooting or something to that effect. He was tepid, at best, at dealing with those things. And yeah, having a black face in no way is indicative of what you're going to do in that office. Having a vagina is in no way indicative of what you're going to do in that office. So, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. They use identity as a weapon, not necessarily, for any good ends. People have to stop falling for race baiting before things can really change. It's a major hurdle and complicated one. Yes, I agree. Yeah, it's a thicket. I always say it's a thicket because whites don't look at their history honestly. Yeah, I don't think whites look at their history honestly. At least the section of the population that's heavy in that other camp, the Republican Party camp. There's a reason why I think a section of the population votes for Republicans, and I don't think that has anything to do with the legitimacy of Republicans' positions. So yeah, so I don't necessarily know how you get past that thing from a political standpoint, outside of getting rid of identity as being one of the major issues. Essentially say, look, I can't win that from a ballot box. I can't solve the issues of race from a ballot box. Off the table for me. If something comes up where that needs to be defended, fair enough, but ultimately my focus is on economics. I'm making the point that part of the racial divisions, you can make a case, is stirred up based on the economic stresses that take place in the society itself, and based on the parties clinging to identity to avoid issues of economics. That's what I think. I think this stuff is played up to some degree. Bob Ramirez, so we need a no special interest workers party. Yes, Bob, I agree. But that'll never happen. People love their hobby horses too much. I don't know, man. I don't like this thing of saying never, this will never happen. I don't know how you know that. Just like, there's a lot of things that people never thought would happen. There's been you have to admit, there's been an oddity in the way that the politics has shifted. Where lefties and rights have, in some issues, somewhat converged. Not necessarily in the same ways and not for the same reasons. But definitely there's an oddity in the way politics is flowing right now. Power and force have always helped lots of the friends in politics. Agreed. Bob, that will never happen. Augur Cybernaut again, the skeptic, the cynic. Gardenome. There are real race issues. You're correct that many whites do not take an honest look at history. This lack of reflection results in white guilt for some and outright bigotry for others. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. It's like you can never be who you actually are because the person is either vacillating between, well, nothing happened in history. You guys just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yes, we were able to make magnificent amounts of wealth off of your back and sweat and labor. And yes, we did gross and nasty and disgusting things for the past X number of hundreds of years. But you were free. You were free. Yes, we kept you out of jobs. We kept you out of certain housing areas. All that stuff is true. But look, you got had a good 40 years to get your shit together. Move it along. It's not just African Americans. It's the same thing with Iraq. You know, it's like you attack a country, you kill 1 million people in that country. Those people go streaming in other countries, creating war zones all throughout the Middle East. And at some point, the people in the country are like, we helped them out. I don't see their issue. I don't see their issue. They should get over it. I mean, it's fucking amazing. I'm always amazed by this thing of this get over it thing. Let's move forward, like Tom Perez and Nancy Pelosi and all the Democrats say. It's like that's the mantra of fuck-ups. We did something really bad, disgusting, and nasty. We just need to move forward. That's what we need to do. We need to move forward. We don't need to take an inventory. We don't need to punish anybody. We just need to move forward. Yeah, man, I don't think in regards to these things, honestly. I honestly don't. Dax Jacobs said, we need some real wins with real people, and in places like California, we need to clear out all the corporate Democrats and Republicans. Dax agreed. My granddaughter is mixed race and is considered black by school district, yet to me, she's been just my granddaughter. Identity politics is deeper than just the DNC, 24-hour lit. It is deeper than just the DNC. My issue is the DNC weaponizes race in this way. Republicans do also. Don't get me wrong. It's both. Both parties use race in this way. I'm saying between the two parties, however, Republicans, going back since what? The Southern strategy thing. Well, that's their wheelhouse. They use race for God knows how long. And Democrats, for the most part, allow blacks into the party. So fair enough. These ideological lines or these identity lines were drawn just almost ensconced in the party's history in this way. It's fair enough. The problem is, trying to win an argument purely on identity, at least from Democrats' standpoint, is not an honest broker. It's not this thing of we're protecting this particular demographic or that demographic, or it's not that. It's we're using this purely to obfuscate from issues of economics that we can't talk about because we would lose our donors. That's what I'm getting at. It's the identity that they're using in this case is used purely in order to not talk about something else. I can call you racist, I can call you sexist, I can call you a bigot, I can call you all these nasty things because you're not voting for my guy that's black or Hispanic or a woman or gay or whatever. Or whatever. They use it also in weird ways. I don't understand this thing of attacking whites for being whites. That sounds very strange to me. One of the women I follow on YouTube, she did that. She was attacking somebody, and she was using white as a club. It's like somebody saying, oh, you're so gay, in a sense of using gay as almost like a negative slur in this way. It's the same thing. I don't necessarily know when that started, and I don't know when it started on the left. And I would argue that that's a principle of Democrats. That's because they've hugged identity to this degree that this is what we want to accrue around ourselves, you know, these particular races. But whites make up 70% of the population. And by the way, it's not necessarily bad being white. It's not bad being anything. These things are quirks of birth. You know, you didn't necessarily choose what race or what creed or what side of the world you're going to be born on. Yeah, I think these things are side effects of the way democratic politics has ran itself for the past 20, 30 years. But they ran it that way, not because they needed to, not because it was the best strategy. Clearly, it wasn't the best strategy. They lost 1,000 seats. But because it had more to do with, we need to come up with a strategy that can get us election wins, but we can't talk about what's typical Democratic talking points. Meaning real Democrats, classical Democrats, Bernie Sanders Democrats. We can't have the conversation about economics. Because if we have that conversation, people like that snarling asshole billionaire who was on MSNBC mad that class was brought up in politics. How dare you bring up class in democratic politics? I talk about Democrats more. I talk about both. Both parties are corrupt. Both parties are fundamentally corrupt. The system itself allows both parties to be corrupt. I talk about Democrats more because between the two, Democrats actually use this illusion or this mask of we're for the everyman, we're for the poor, we're for the working class. That's their mask. So I hold them to their mask. It's like I'm cynical enough to know that all of this stuff is a scam, but I'm a bit naive enough to believe that it shouldn't be. It's like, come on. If you're going to use those talking points, you're going to be held to those talking points. And you will be attacked viciously and persistently if you're going to do things that go against the language that you're using. At that point, you're just lying in order to get votes. So yeah. I don't like their strategy. I don't like this thing that these guys have been doing purely for their corporate To mostly young, they're corporate masters. Yeah, that's right. They're corporate masters. All this Sabinite. Cynic I may be, but if inequality is at the greatest since pharaohs and the left are still planning to do something, what's the wait? I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I just made another video earlier saying what is wrong with the 99% and why don't they wake up? I don't have an answer to that. I honestly don't. Kashwari Kate. Lisa Hauserman, good night now. What? Good night now. Oh, good night now. She must have said something. Garneau, my cousins, who are biracial, have fallen into this and have become anti-white bigots to a degree. Noah and many others still use racially biased language. Bob Ramirez said, it isn't about what they discuss or stick into the public platforms, what they actually believe in and act upon. Bob, agreed. Agreed. 24-hour live. We've always had corporate masters. It's just that these masters are particularly greedy. I don't understand why we have corporate masters at all. That's my point. I don't understand it. 99% of the country. You have half of the country in poverty. I don't understand why anybody would want somebody to be over them in a workspace or in any capacity with regards to status. Why on earth does this person have 95? Let me ask a different question. If all the resources on the planet, who gave those resources to anybody? Like, I completely missed this point. This is where I lose the line with this thing of property and all this other stuff, the way this wealth and all this stuff is accrued. Who gave that stuff away? Ultimately, all that stuff was either stolen from somebody or some kind of murdered group. That land was taken and the land was given to some kind of corporate interests. That's your origins. Fair enough. But you don't have to persist in that way. Ultimately, you have a governmental structure that the 99% should have used to change how this is organized. They should have fundamentally changed how this is organized. I don't understand why the 99% persists in the way that it persists and thinks this is perfectly okay. I don't know when that 99% wakes up, to make Augur's point. I don't agree with Karl Marx that these people would just kind of rise up one day and, you know, put down their whatever they're holding, I guess at this point, their computer screens, and go running to their post office in this kind of emancipatory thing. I'm a little bit more cynical than that to believe that that's going to happen in that way. I tend to believe stress and pressure gets people to become awake. I suppose that if that model is true, then the stress and pressure has to get worse. So I don't know when that takes place. So Augur, yes, I agree. I don't necessarily know when that takes place. And yes, if things are this bad now, these guys are ramping up inequality even more, and the masses still just go to work. They eat their Cheerios. They have sex with their wives. They have sex with their mistresses. They pet their kids on the head, and they rinse and repeat. They're stealing massive amounts of cash. They're putting that cash on the backs of the public. And the public sees this and eats their Cheerios, play their Xbox, work at their jobs, essentially working themselves to poverty, making somebody else massively, massively wealthy, massively rich. And they go home and they say, I'm free, and they point their fingers at other countries. That's even if they pay attention to other countries. And they call it a life. I don't know why they do that. Like, I understand it from, I don't know why they think that's okay. Let me say it that way. Yeah, I don't know how they get people to change in this way. I don't know how to get them to change. It's like, it's almost as if the imagination has been beaten down to such a degree that seeing anything beyond their current existence, it's just a fool's errand. It's like, why do I need to think of something beyond what I'm doing right now? I'm living a cyclical thing until the point that I die. I'm making somebody else massively, massively rich until I die. You think about what took place during slaves and serfs. What was the perspective of the slave and what was the perspective of the serf? And what was the society itself that ensconced that perspective into the slave and the serf, meaning maintaining that particular organization in order to keep wealth accruing in the way that wealth was accruing? I am making the point that in the same way there was a serf and a slave, I'm saying there's this worker. This worker. They found the system and they've arranged it in a way that would allow people to work, have a little bit more for themselves, but funnel everything to the top. Meaning you still have this situation of massive and massive and massive amounts of wealth. You still have this master class and the slave class, even though the slave believes that the slave is free. He doesn't see his chains. So he doesn't necessarily think that everything is all bad and everything else. And he looks back at history and say, well, We're better off than them. Those sad bastards. We're better off than them. Yeah, man, I don't know when people change in this way. I don't know how you change the hegemonic view of the society where it shifts into, holy shit, we're being had. Holy shit, we're being had. I don't know how it changes. JT, join the dark side. I've said, I've had so many videos on this very specific point. You merely adopted the darkness. Adopted the darkness. I thought to myself, look, at some point, I'm sympathetic, because at some point, everybody was in a fog. You know what I mean? It's like nobody just kind of came out the womb completely in this thing of, wait a minute, these commercials aren't real. These people are lying. These people are fucking maniacs in government. They're killers. I think you hit your head on something. Like, I honestly think you function in a way and something happens. You hit your head on it. It was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. If my understanding was the world was correct, that wouldn't happen. Yeah, at that point, you try to figure out why, and then as you look into it, you become more and more cynical about the process. Dominique Buscemi, did you see Jimmy Dore's video with Richard Wolff about worker co-ops? I did. I like Richard Wolff. I like Richard Wolff a lot. Garneau, correct, Bob, universal income is a band-aid, not a solution. Agreed, Garneau. Yes, absolutely agree. Perfectly agree. D. Scully, you changed the hegemonic view by teaching basic civics to kids again. The problem today is ignorance about governments and how they work. D. Scully, yes, agreed. Agreed. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. The question is, how do you get... It needs to be reworked. How we organize ourselves needs to be reworked. Teaching civics is not enough. It's not enough. That doesn't teach the kid how to think. That just teaches, that ensconces what government is into this kind of perpetuity. This like, nothing changes. You want your society, you even want your kids to have this idea of this kind of, what are the problems, what are the ills, how do you fix those ills? In imaginative ways. Ways that actually move the country forward, this kind of transformative process of what government is. We can't keep going the way we're going. It just doesn't work. Like this idea of status quo, with these guys raping the planet, whether you want to talk about climate, whether you want to talk about ecological issues like habitat loss or habitat collapse because of what we're doing in regards to agriculture, monocrops, or even when you're talking about human stress, meaning how our economics affects human beings themselves, this kind of creating a population of poverty, of this hollowing out of the United States. So, yeah, man, we can't keep going the way we're going. We're going to hit a wall. We're going to hit a wall. So we should send all our kids to Phoenix University, huh? It's funny, Trump University. And Mark Pontiki, we need more adult education programs as well, not just kids. Many adults also don't know how our government works and how other governments work. Right there, the other governments thing. I think Americans in general don't have this idea of what takes place abroad. I don't think they understand what European, this kind of social democracy allows in regards to the way human beings are treated in social democracies. I don't think they know it. They've been indoctrinated with a very particular thing, this kind of individualistic perspective of the world that's immensely vulgar and immoral. But it's what we accept as being normal. Dan Howell, nope, we need to rethink education. Agreed. It needs to start in the homes and continue in the homes that are run by parents, teachers, with inputs from the kids. Ugh. Yeah, I think you lost me on that one. I agree with the... My problem is you're going to create a disconnected society. So I might have one person in the household. That person wants to teach their kids about the Northern War of Aggression. This thing that the North attacked the South because the South had just wanted to have states' rights. And then you have somebody else who says, well, no, this war was started because of slavery. Which is accurate, actually, which is why the Civil War started. The Civil War was over slavery. There's no doubt about the Civil War being over slavery. But you have people in the South who don't want to own up to that history. Again, my point, they don't own up to their history. Do you really want people in Texas or people in some of these other states teaching that it was the North that attacked and that the war wasn't over slavery and that ultimately that war was on? It's like, what kooky ideas would these parents teach their kids? No, I think you need this kind of basic civics education in regards to government, in regards to other governments abroad. Yeah, I think you need to be somewhat of a universalist if you're going to have education. But I'm sketchy on the idea of having parents teach their kids. I've known many parents, and some of their parents are in this weird... What about religious parents? Like, them believing that the Bible is something that they want to tell their kids. It's like, no, fuck that. Fuck that. I'm uncomfortable with that. I'm sorry. I'm not that trusting of parents in this case. That sounds bad, but I'm not all that trusting. Gardner, AC worker co-ops have worked many times in the past. Yeah, agreed. I love worker co-ops. I love that idea. Richard Wolff is being somewhat coy when he makes that idea, by the way. That's straight up communism. But I love it. I love it. You're getting rid of the bourgeois. Like, think of it as you have this cancer cell that goes in and gobbles up the bourgeois while at the same time handing workers the means of production. That's Marx. That's literally Marx. So, I fucking love it. And, mind you, the advantage to it is, A, you stop jobs from being bled overseas, and B, you cut down on, well, I would say there were 3 reasons, but you stop jobs from going overseas. The people who are working in the worker co-ops get paid more because you're not wasting money on the CEOs and some of these other irrelevance. And you're getting rid of the bourgeois. That class. You're eating that class. You're literally eating that class. If you don't have people in those companies making $20 million where you have other people making like poverty wages, that money can go towards the people in the company. And the people in the company themselves understands how that company works, and they can make the decisions for the company. So yeah, I like it. It doesn't solve all your issues, by the way. It doesn't solve all your issues at all. But at the very least, 2 main issues, this thing of pay and this thing of pay and maintaining jobs at home. Yeah, I love it. Totally love it. Oh, here's the cynic. August Cybernaut. Wolff never talks about trade-offs. It's just a string of sunshine and rainbows, and no one in his audience asks the hard questions. Excuse me, I have asked Richard Wolff hard questions. I've had the opportunity to talk to Richard Wolff once while I was at one of the things. Yeah, I asked him a question. I thought my question was pretty decent. I asked him, I said, aren't these companies still just capitalistic enterprises that are kind of these little kingdoms fighting one another? Like, you still have this issue of this capitalistic system in place. Meaning those companies. Maybe I should do a video on the negatives of that. Or the problems associated with it. It doesn't solve all your issues. Those things are still capitalistic enterprises. I mean, yes, workers own the means of production. But it owns the means of production of a capitalistic enterprise, if that makes sense. So, yes, their pay is good. Yes, the other issue is good. But you still can't cut your labor time. I mean, if you had a situation where there's a new tool that does a particular task better, if your competitors have a tool, that exact same tool, you cutting your hours cuts down the amount that you can produce compared to your competitors, meaning that you are still going to have to produce for the same amount as your competitor. You are still in this quagmire of labor in a sense. But is it better? Yes, of course it's better. Of course it's better. Of course it's better. There are legitimate elements to Northern War of aggression narrative, and the Civil War was about far more than slavery. Saying it was all about slavery is oversimplification. The Civil War was about slavery. Those states wanted to maintain their slaves. They tried to use this thing of states' rights, but it was about slavery. I would say look that one up, Gardner. We disagree on that one. We totally disagree on that one. There are documents where the people who are involved in the conflict say openly and outright, have no doubt about it, this war is about slavery. I take them at their word since they were living at that time. Tabitha Enriquez started about economics. Slavery was economics. Bill O'Reilly. Wolff doesn't believe in a universal basic income. He doesn't believe in a universal basic income because he doesn't want the public at each other's throats. He believes that it creates conflict. So you have the situation where you have some people who are making magnificent amounts of cash. You have other people who are not making as much cash. And you said, all right, we're going to take from one and give to the other. And he believes that creates a certain societal strife. This, putting the society at each other's throats. I disagree with him on that, by the way. I don't agree with him on that. The rich have done magnificently well at the expense of workers in this country. They were able to get 95% of the gains went to the top 1%. Now, are you telling me that with such magnificent amounts of wealth being harvested, off of the public itself, that you shouldn't have a wealth tax on that. They got that money at the expense of everybody else. That money is not being materialized or made out of thin air. Cutting jobs, putting in robots, shipping jobs overseas, attacking labor, putting its fingers into the political apparatus in order to give tax cuts in some cases, in order to give corporate welfare in other cases. No, they've made out magnificently well. Yes, there should be a universal basic income. I don't care the politics of it. I don't care how you need to make it work. If you need to say we're taxing the resources, meaning if the rich are going to use resources in particular countries, in particular states, those resources belong to everybody within this country, in which case we're putting a tax on it, and that money is coming back as a universal basic income. I don't care how you do it. But yes, that should be a universal basic UBI. There should be a UBI. People shouldn't have this much vulnerability. And the point of life is not to work in this way. What happens when most of the stuff that you have is automated, or many of those jobs are overseas, or you don't have enough jobs themselves to compensate or keep up, or have enough jobs for the number of people who your society is producing, which is where we are, by the way. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. There's a perceptual change that needs to take place to realize that from a goods and supply standpoint, we have what we need. You have the technology to make all the things that you need for anybody on this planet. That becomes an issue of choice and perception. And that's the most annoying part. This is not a technological issue, meaning we don't necessarily have to have war. We don't necessarily have to have these issues of resources. We don't have to have people starving. We don't have to have people without the basic things that they need. Those are choices. We choose it. That's the worst fucking part. That's the worst part. It's a choice. All this stuff is choice. Augur Cybernaut. Wealth tax. This is some legit 420. This wasn't 420, but okay. Our jobs will be consumerism. That is, our jobs will be buying stuff. Your job is to buy stuff. That's what keeps the system going. Greenspan is one of those dual citizens Israelis. He does not do for the bidding of our people. He serves another master. A lot of them serve another master. It's called profit. Damn, UBI looks like a good idea, but I fear it will be used as a method of control. Theoretically, it is supposed to be available to everyone, but government can help but make decisions about who gets it. Agreed. I agree. What happens is a loss of tax revenues. It's not a loss of tax revenues. Good point, Dan. Yeah, it's not a loss of tax revenues. I have no idea what you mean on that one. Whatever you want to call it. Look, personally, I would say this land is common heritage, meaning it is not the government's right or responsibility to give the land away in the way that it gives the land away. If the land is going to be harvested, used, whatever, however you're going to use it, part of the money, part of the cash, or part of what's created off of those resources should go back to the people in those states. There is no reason at all why West Virginia, with all the coal resources that West Virginia had at its disposal, being the 48th poorest state. That's not right at all. You would think that the resources of that state would have went towards the people of that state. It should have went to the people of that state, just like Alaska. Oil was used by the state, and a refund was given to the people in that state, like a stipend to each person. So yeah. Not if you're taxing the robots and corporations, creating the income Bill O'Reilly. Tax the robots. I heard somebody else say that. Tax the robots. Video game Vision Quest. UBI is absolutely essential, and we will need to change the way money works and make it happen. It's an ancient technology created to pay soldiers to make war. Agreed. Video game Quest, agreed. It needs to change. I don't know about the soldier part, but definitely agree it needs to change. Dan Howell. The original idea of the UBI was... And I am back. Yeah, we pay way too much for our internet to be acting up this way. That's mentally annoying. But it came back up this time. It had been down for like 2 hours. Alright, I think people are leaving. At least it looks like 20 or 30 people are left. I'm going to end this because I don't know how stable this is going to continue to be. But, guys, I agree with you about the way we need to reorganize how we do our cash in our society in general. Look, if you're going to get rid of corruption, you need to actually fundamentally change how we arrange ourselves. And assume that human beings are fallible. Like, don't assume integrity. Integrity should not be assumed, if that makes sense. You build your system in a way where the incentive is not to fuck other people over. That's what I'm getting at. The moment that you reach a point where your technology allows, if put to good use and put in the right way and put in the right hands, to provide for all of the resources that the people need on the planet, then at that point it is a sad statement on society that the society has chosen not to do that, and is so fundamentally stuck in the past that it can't make the transition. Yeah, I agree with you guys on the cash thing. It needs to change. How we do it needs to change. So I am going to end it here because I have a connection. I don't know how long that connection will last. Oh, looks stable, but I don't know how long it will last. So, alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. And we have come a long way, because we were initially talking about rigged elections. We've moved all the way over. Actually, that's not too far. I mean, we're talking about rigged elections, and we end up on universal basic income. It's a bit of wood to chop. Then spiral off into Star Trek. So, alright, I'm going to end it. You guys have a good night. Yeah, leave it at that. You guys have a good night.